So I'd like to open up the regular meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners. Everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. At this time, do we have any written, where's Caroline? Oh, there, no. Okay, there you are. Okay, we have no written public comments at this time. Number 4, approve of special meeting on September 15, 2020. Just raise your hand if you make the motion. Motion by Dave, second by John. Discussion. All in favor, just raise your hand. Opposed? Abstention, so carry 5-0. Thank you. Approve of regular meeting on September 16, 2020. Just raise your hand to make the motion. Motion by John, second by Dave. Discussion. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand. Opposed? Abstention, so carry. Thank you, 5-0. Approval of special meeting on September 23rd, 2020. Just raise your hand to make the motion. Motion by Dave, second by Kyle. Discussion. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Abstention, so carry. 5-0. Thank you. Management report, Chief.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Chief Sarkowski reporting. So budget is doing well. No concerns at this time. On a positive note, we've seen an increase in some of our revenue. That's mainly due to private duty and ongoing pistol permit applications that people are submitting daily to get their pistol permits. We're monitoring the increase in COVID-19 as it rises throughout the state and our community. We had one officer that was out for approximately 8 days as a precautionary measure, but that person has since returned to work. There's no other concerns at this time. On the heels of that, we reiterated our mask procedure and protocol. We ended up buying some new masks and coverings for the officers to utilize. I have some for the commissioners as well, if and when I see you in person, or I have them on me when I see you. One officer was responding to a call for service. A vehicle pulled out in front of him. He did an evasive maneuver to avoid what could have been a serious collision. And on the heels of that, we had some minor damage to that vehicle that was repaired. But that situation could have been a lot worse if the officer didn't take the action he did. So good job on his part. I attended a meeting for the Statewide Narcotics Task Force. As you know, we have an officer in the Statewide Narcotics Task Force, and we receive monthly stipends for that officer being in there. At that meeting, they informed the departments that have officers in that unit that the monthly stipends are on hold until further notice. The grant money that they have been using has run out, and the additional grant money that they expected to use is tied up in litigation in court. So for the meantime, we will not be getting stipend for the monthly stipend for the officer being in that unit. They're not sure how long that will last, and they don't believe that money would be retroactive at this point. A lot of cities and towns get that same grant money, and there has been litigation for the past 3 or 4 years, and that's where that money's tied up. So until that money is released by the courts, I don't see that getting any better. But as they stated, they're pursuing some other avenues to get some funding, and they'll keep us abreast of how that's going to work out. I attended a meeting for the Ordinance Committee for the town. They were interested in some documentation. We provided that documentation, and we had some discussion. It mainly centered around our noise ordinance. My suggestion to them was leave as is for now. We don't really have a lot of problems implementing that. So that was my suggestion to them. A letter was sent to Department of Public Works requesting larger stop signs and the paintings on the 3 or 4-way intersections. I believe you have that correspondence. We had a civilian complaint against one of our officers, and that is being investigated. We instituted a new IA on that. We have one officer still out on comp. We have one officer still out on long-term disability, which is now work-related. We still have the one administrative position that still remains open. And we instituted our community initiative in the past week or so with the Ring program, and that's available to the public to download the Ring app. And that'll allow them to share videos, their concerns, and other information with the PD through a law enforcement portal. And I thank the community officer for assisting with that project and getting that off the ground. I think that's be a good resource for the community to use. I believe that's it for now for the report.
Do any board members have any comments or questions of the chief? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next item. Commissioners' comments. I'll start with you, Dave.
Can we go back one? I was on mute. I couldn't jump in. I wanted to ask the chief if you're going to be addressing the software, the next gen program at any point tonight, or should I ask a question now?
Ask it now.
Okay, so obviously we all got the reports with which was, the new software was utilized, and it's very impressive. So I just want to get brought up to speed. Has everybody been trained? Let me rephrase that. All active personnel has everybody been trained on how to use it?
Commissioner, Deputy Chief Rinaldi here. Yes, everyone has been trained on it, with the exception of myself and the chief, and we should be getting trained soon on that. But everybody should be up to date on the training.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more, Dave?
No, that's it for now. Thank you.
Okay, John? You're on mute.
Thank you. Chief, I was just going through the reports here, which I love the new system, by the way. And I'm seeing a lot of activity for some stops that are occurring on the third shift, which I think is good. But we obviously have a major problem with car break-ins in the community that's been happening on primarily on the midnight shift. They seem to be getting more frequent, a little bit more brazen. And my concern is, instead of having units doing traffic stops, where they're stationary, I'd like to see some more patrolling, especially in some of the quieter, off the beaten path neighborhoods where they seem to be targeting. I think if they see more police activity, in the course of their night when they're looking for houses or cars to hit, if they see 2 or 3 cruisers, in a short period of time driving around, they're going to move on to another area to hit. And one of my biggest concerns is, as this is becoming more frequent, is, a resident walking out to their car and interrupting one of these burglaries. And then we have a bad situation that's ultimately could take a turn for the worse, whether it's for the resident or the kid who's, breaking into a car. So I would just like to see some more, increased patrols, and not as much stationary work, but I think they're doing an excellent job, and I commend them. Thank you.
Is that it, John? Okay, thank you. Tom, do you have any commissioner's
Commissioner, can I
comments?
just respond to that?
Oh, yes, you can.
Chairman? All right, Commissioner Duke, the officers are out there on midnights also patrolling. A lot of it's not stationary. A lot of it is moving, and they're seeing violations and stopping vehicles. When we're at our minimum, we only have 3 areas to cover. When we have another person working, we do have 4 areas, so smaller areas to patrol and more visibility. They're trying their best on midnights to be visible, but of course, as you could see, we've had a couple of officers who are very proactive with DUI stops. So that's time consuming also for them. It's also could be a deterrent for a lot of people coming through town, especially when they see officers on the main roadways stopping cars. It's a deterrent. Again, we're getting hit just the same as everybody else in the state, but we'll try our best. That's all I can say for now.
Deputy Chief Rinaldi, if you could just identify for the record that was you speaking because of.
Deputy Chief Rinaldi.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bennett, do you have any commissioners' comments?
Commissioner Bennett, good evening, everybody. Since the last couple meetings we've had, some of the topics we've been dealing with are internal affairs investigations. And a thought process I've been having is that, is there any way that we can do a scrubbing or a thorough review of some of these investigations that we've had? And I say that because it just seems that maybe our system could use a little tweaking here as far as maybe the policies are concerned or how these are conducted. And maybe we can identify some areas of weaknesses that could be improved upon. And I'm kind of just talking out loud here. I'm not sure if anybody else may have some comments or thoughts about that also.
Does anyone have any comments about Tom's suggestion?
Yes, I'll chime in. Actually, I think that's a
Just
very
state
good
your name,
idea.
Dave.
I'm sorry, Dave Bitso, Commissioner Bitso. Tom, I think that's a great idea, and I know you're being general here, but there are some things that may have happened that we probably should have someone take a look at, an independent party take a look at to find out how things happened, how they got to where they were, how they got to where they were, and then this way here we can learn from that and move on. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we accomplish that, but I definitely think that a good review would not hurt to figure out how some of these things get to the board and maybe identify the board's, at what point the board does get involved. And again, I'm new to this, so those are just some of the questions that I've had since some of the last meetings with these cases that have been going on.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll ask Attorney Leclerc if he could just maybe give us a little suggestion on this situation.
Yeah, so just so I'm clear, you're asking as a commission for the commission to review the procedures followed with these IAs from the initiation of the complaint to the conclusion of the complaints. Is that what Mr. Bennett, you're seeking? That's what I'm trying to get my arms around here. What you as the commission want to do exactly?
Commissioner Bennett again, I think, again, I'm being very general here, but there needs to be a review definitely of the policies of how these are initiated and how we get to where we're supposed to be. And I say that because I feel as though we've had some issues with some of the last investigations. Obviously, we're coming across grievances and such like that. So that, if we reviewed a couple of these cases to find out, is there issues with the policies that's driving these investigations? Is it our complaint process itself as to how these complaints are getting in? Is it how they're being investigated? Is there an issue with the investigation process itself? I understand that's overly broad, but I think if we did a review of a couple of the last significant cases and looked at them and identified some of the areas, obviously, that we've already talked about in executive session, and determined how did we get there? Where was the failure point in those investigations?
And you
How's
certainly
that
could. You certainly could. It's Brian Leclerc could add that to the agenda. Because you set the operational directives and make rules and regulations regarding the department and the governance of the department. So you could put that on the agenda and start that process as a commission, talking to the chief, deputy chief, other ranking officers as to what policy, how IAs are handled, what the process is that is followed, and then you could look at how it was followed in certain manners procedurally to determine if there needs to be a policy change into how IAs are handled by the department. Certainly, I would tee that up on an agenda and just start that as a process, either of the whole board or a subcommittee of the board.
Commissioner Bennett here again, Attorney Leclerc. So what happens if we're talking about specific cases at that point, addressing things we've done in executive session in the past?
I think we have to be careful, of bringing things out in the public. If it involves an officer, if it involves discipline, if it involves investigatory techniques, a number of things that may not be able to be done in public session. You may be able to discuss certain aspects of IAs in public, but you may not be able to discuss everything about particular IAs. It would be subject to exactly what you're talking about. And we'll advise you when to go into executive on what topics that you should not be discussing publicly.
Thank you. Food for thought for the other commissioners on the board.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Brian.
Chief Sutkowski, if I could weigh in.
Go ahead, Chief.
So obviously, some of this is contractual. It lays out in the contract, discipline and discharge. What happens when you get a civilian complaint? There's post-C standards we have to follow, which are the standards set by the state. You got to post it on your website. You have to have the form available. You have to take any and all complaints. A lot of that is all dictated to us, obviously, especially the civilian complaints. And then obviously me or if the deputy chief feels that there's been some conduct that's not to the standards of the Seymour Police Department, then obviously that's my job to initiate an IA, to look into those matters. And then obviously whatever the conclusion is of those investigations, then the appropriate action may or may not be taken. But that's just hopefully help you with some of that.
Yes, Dave.
Commissioner Bitso, Attorney Leclerc, is this something that we can have an outside neutral firm brought in to investigate for us?
I don't know that you can do that. First, you would need a funding source for that.
Understood.
You need to go back to the Board of Finance, I believe, and or the Board of Selectmen to get money for it. And I'm not sure what group you would want. It would seem like it's one thing to talk procedural. It's another to talk substantively how certain investigations were handled. And I'm not sure if there is such a group we can bring in, or if this is just a subjective determination that you as a board need to listen to how things were handled. Do you need to change the procedures? And there's certain, the chief is right. There's certain things under the collective bargaining agreement that must be followed, of course. And then once they're followed, if there's a question regarding how procedurally investigations occur, what timeline, what resources are devoted, I'm not sure who you would want to bring in to do that or how they can help you with that. I haven't seen that. We haven't seen that before, bringing in an outside group like that to tell you subjectively how the process was followed.
Any other board members have any comments on this issue? What I'll do is after all the commissioners' comments, I'll ask for a motion to place this on the agenda for tonight. And then hopefully I'll appoint a subcommittee to look into this. John Duke, do you have any, did you already go or no? You okay? You're on mute.
I already went.
Oh, I thought so. Who didn't go? Kyle. Here you go. Kyle, you have any questions?
Yeah, I've got one or two quick things. One, I had a resident in the North Street area ask for, some increased patrol and even some radar if possibly done in the evening time. There's been several instances where there's been motorcycles and motor vehicles traveling at a high rate of speed, passing cars. And then there's some children that play in the area. One family actually had to put up a fence to be sure that their kids weren't gonna, travel out close to the road. And so if we could, here and there between, on second shift, increase that a little bit, and even add some radar there. Two of the residents actually said you could even sit in their yard. So if you have, you could contact me and I'll give you those addresses. The other thing is just a question, and just to make sure that chiefs, you both received the email I sent from a contact that I had at Norcom about some more body worn camera devices, just something else to look at. Just wondering how that process is going.
Okay, is there any other comments from the commissioners? Okay,
Chairman Koskolowski, Deputy Chief.
Yes.
Rinaldi.
Yes, Chief.
Commissioner Kyle, yeah, we'll take care of that on North Street. And I did get your email, but I haven't looked at it yet. Pass it on to, I believe Inspector Dingus is still in charge of handling that. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, moving on from that, does the board want me put this on the agenda for the next meeting so that we don't do it tonight, but we do it at the next meeting where I'll appoint a sub, what's that, Kyle?
I was agreeing. I think the next meeting works.
Okay, I'll put that on the agenda. Caroline, make sure we put that on agenda. Appointing a committee to look at the IAs. Thank you. Okay, moving on. Old business. Number one on old business is comp time. I believe all the members received a copy of what the union proposed for comp time. But I do want to ask Attorney Brian Leclerc concerning, I got two questions for you, Attorney Leclerc. One is, has the contract been settled and negotiated complete now?
The town of Seymour has signed the contract, but as of now, we do not have a signed contract back from the bargaining unit, from the union.
Okay, the other question I have, Brian, is comp time a negotiated issue, or is it management, or is it our decision to do it or not?
No, it's ultimately, Mr. Chairman, it's Brian Leclerc again. It's ultimately an issue of collective bargaining. It is a part of the contract, which officers get comp time, which officers get overtime. As you know, for example, it's the detectives who get the comp time when performing detective duties. Because it's in the collective bargaining agreement as such, it is an issue, and for collective bargaining, your first selectman represents the town as its CEO in connection with these contract negotiations under MARA. You as a commission can have input if you want, and you can always make a suggestion as a commission, but you could not adopt anything like this because it would be contrary to the collective bargaining agreement. And it is something subject to collective bargaining, which requires the first selectman and negotiations rather than commission action.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the board can't act independently. This has to go through the contract negotiation process.
It has to go through that process unless that issue was pulled from it by the town and given to you to resolve as a policy, but it has not been. It is part of the contract rather, and must stay as part of the contract and be negotiated as part of the contract.
So the board can't act on this comp time this evening, correct?
You cannot adopt it. The most you can do, Mr. Chairman, is make a recommendation to the first selectman that this be considered as part of collective bargaining, or that your recommendation be considered in the next round of collective bargaining.
Okay, since it's on the agenda, comp time, can I ask for a motion, Brian, to request that we contact the first select person and see if they will add that to the contract?
And Mr. Chairman, you could make a motion. A motion could be made that for example, the proposal set forth in whatever the document's entitled. It is the recommendation of the Police Commission that policy set forth in that document be included and adopted in the collective bargaining agreement. Sure.
Okay, thank you. Could I have a motion to include Seymour Police Department comp time procedure to be negotiated into the contract by the town? Motion by John.
The motion.
Second by Kyle. Who seconded? Second by Kyle. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, it's Brian Leclerc. Just to be clear on your motion, comp time is already part of collective bargaining. Is your motion that the certain document, which you probably should reference by name, that was distributed to everyone, that the provisions of that be considered by the first selectman and included in the contract?
Yes, that's what the motion would be, I believe. Who made the motion? John Duke made the motion. Is that what you understand the motion to be, John?
That's what I believed, yes.
And Kyle seconded it. Yes, that's the way it is. Discussion. All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? So carry 5-0. Thank you very much. We'll get a letter off. Caroline, can we get a letter off to the first selectman to ask them to include this? And I'll make sure you get a copy of this to the first selectman's office. Thank you. Next on the agenda is evaluation update. Chief, do you have an evaluation update?
Yeah, sure. So evaluations were given out to the deputy chief, who handed them out to the commanders. Those are in process, and we expect to have them done either by the end of the month or the first week of November. So we're making progress, and we should have them done.
Okay, Chief, has any evaluations been done yet?
To my knowledge, they're given to the commander, so I believe they are working on them. So yes, I would say they're some of them have to be done by now, I would assume.
Chairman Kowalski, Deputy Chief Rinaldi here. Yes, they were handed out, and as far as I know, the commanders are and the sergeants are working on it. I can check tomorrow or Friday, but as far as I know,
will be any chance by our next meeting we will at least have a number of how many evaluations have been done? It shouldn't take very long. We're only talking about 7 or 8 people per shift.
they've been given the. Go ahead, Chief.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I can say they were given the evaluations. They were told to do them. I'll look into it again. Like the chief said, by the end of the month, we'll have it. So your next meeting, you should have all the patrolmen, and hopefully I'll have all the commanders have to do the sergeants, and I'll do the commanders.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully.
Any board members have any comments on evaluations? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to update on chief's goals.
So last month I presented that to the board. It was requested to be put in writing. I did that, and if you have any questions, but I believe we're making progress on all those, and you go through them, probably 5 out of 8 are probably complete. 2 are in process, as well as the third one. So I think we're right where we need to be.
Okay, do any board members have any questions concerning the goals? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the Canine Report. The only thing I noticed on the Canine Report, I only received one of the Canine reports. Is there a reason why we don't have both of them?
Mr. Chairman, it's Brian Leclerc. Did you skip a few items, or is there an amended agenda?
No evaluation and update on chief's goals. Oh, wait,
Train,
training update. I did.
thank you.
Sorry about that. I'm in a hurry. You told me to end the meeting quick.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Deputy Chief Rinaldi here. Couple things. Officer Barrett attended 60 hours of certified training last month. The entire department has done some training about the new laws that took effect October 1st. We had a couple of people from the state's attorney's office in Milford come here to the PD. We videotaped it so all the officers could get the information that's needed, the new laws involving motor vehicle stops, interviews, searches, etc. So everybody should be done by now. I know I have a sign-up sheet. I haven't checked it in a couple of days, but I know there was probably 2 or 3 people left. We're still waiting for the vendor that we have about the human trafficking and bias training. They're still working on it. I called them last week. They said they're still working on it. As soon as it's ready, they're going to give me a call. And I want to try to do the human trafficking first and get everybody done within a week or 2. And then I'll move on to the bias training and then so on and so on. And I believe that's what I have for now.
Any board members have any questions on the training? Yes, Kyle?
Is there a requirement from post for any physical training as far as OC, batons, handcuffs, taser, that kind of stuff?
I believe so. We're going to be working on that. Actually, we just sent some officers Monday to OC training, so we're going to get retrained. The baton, we're still working on that. I believe the chief mentioned it a meeting or 2 ago. That a couple of people are trained in the baton, but we're working on getting that done. And I'm sorry, what was the other one? The OC baton?
Yeah, I was just wondering on some of those, some of the secondary weapons and less lethal stuff, the baton, taser, OC, handcuffs. So I didn't know if it was annual, if there was a requirement from post for that, whether it be annually, biannually, every 5 years or whatever the case.
It's good to do it annually and get recertified. Again, we're working on it due to new laws coming into effect and what's going on in today's society. We want to have all of our officers well-trained, and we're working on it, but due to this COVID stuff and trying to get some of the training, things are still slow and slowly getting.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Chief
Any other comments?
Chief Setkowski, if I could comment.
Go ahead, Chief.
Chief Setkowski speaking. So the only thing post requires is obviously the firearms. You have to meet certain criteria every year. It's 3 hours per year. But the other stuff you're talking about, obviously those are highly recommended, but they fall under like different categories like patrol procedures. So, you could have a OC spray or, whatever course you want, and that'll fall under a different category. A lot of those goes towards electives. So, as long as it's done by a certified instructor through post. So that's what we try to do each and every time we give training, to get the certified instruction. So those hours count towards our post hours, because even though you send people to training, if they're not post hours, then you still have to send them to training to get those post hours. So we try to kill, no pun intended, we try to get 2 birds with 1 stone, if you will, and make the most out of our training money and dollars. That's how we try to work things as far as, but those categories will fall under electives mostly, and then count towards the training credit hours.
Okay, like I said, I didn't know if they were like firearms quals, if they were, if they had an expiration date, if they needed research, if you will.
Just Commissioner Kelly, just one thing on that. We are going to start up our firearms training hopefully by the end of this month or beginning of next month. So that requirement is going to be fulfilled.
Yes, Tom?
Commissioner Bennett, I have a question concerning the training. When was the last time anybody in the department received elective training? So in other words, advanced DWI school, drug recognition school, search and seizure school. Has anybody gone, and I realize we're in COVID right now, but prior to that, when was the last time that anybody received any elective training?
All right. It's funny you're asking that because the officer, today was his last day. I sent an officer for a DWI class. I tried to get 2 officers in there. Unfortunately, the state the state only took 1 of the officers. So we did send somebody for that. I'm looking into other classes in the academy. Again, they're very slow and they're only offering limited classes. As soon as I can get one, I'll send people to it. You know, again, this month here, we're going to be doing our training with the firearms and some of the training based on our vendor there where we could get people, you know, to human trafficking and the bias training and in other classes. And I believe some of those classes are going to involve search and seizure and a couple other classes, you know, that you mentioned. But definitely the DWI class, they finally, and as far as I know, that's the first class that we just got in a couple of years at least, if not longer than that. They finally offered it and I was able to get 1 officer in there.
Is there other opportunities for, say, accident reconstruction school? And there's tons of classes out there. I'm just wondering what the availability is as far as, is it an issue finding the time and the money to send people to schools?
The accident reconstruction classes I've been looking into. I know Commander Peratt showed me one a while ago. But we didn't send anybody, but the chief and I have spoken about that to get somebody else in that. And we're just working on it. Let's see if we can get a qualified person into it. So we're looking into that. That's going to be down the road. And the other classes, again, and when they offer it, I'll try to get somebody out there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? Okay, on the agenda, next was Garden Street update. I believe that should have been Robert Street update. Do you have a?
Yes, Chief Sekowski speaking. So we reviewed that as requested. I believe a resident brought a concern to Commissioner Duke. We reviewed that whole situation. It's my recommendation at this time that we leave it as is and just monitor it. You know, the street is plenty wide enough to have parking on both sides as well as 2-way traffic. You know, we did a history. There hasn't really been a lot of complaints, or there hasn't really been any concerns with that gentleman explained. I think it was just an unfortunate incident that happened to him that day. I mean, it could occur on any street, but I don't feel a need to make that one way at this time. It is used, you know, when 67 gets shut down, we use that for access to emergency vehicles and as a reroute. And then there's some other dynamics that I explained last month with the left turn lane. You know, I've monitored that several times throughout the weeks, and every time I've been over there, it's been quiet, and I've been through there different times of the day reviewing that situation. So I really don't see a need to do anything with that at this time. So, you know, I'll have patrol. You know, sometimes people do use it as a cut through, obviously, to get to North Street or beat the lights. So I think maybe a little increase patrol presence might curb some of people's concerns there if the speed is an issue or erratic driving. So.
John, did you have anything to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the chief for looking into that, and I will pass that along to the citizen who made the complaint.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, next, A, patrol reports. Any of the commissioners have any comments on the patrol reports other than that they're fantastic?
Okay, Deputy Chief Rinaldi here. Mr. Chairman, I just, I guess you guys approve of these forms, or do you want them critiqued or smaller, or how do you feel about it? Or all the commissioners?
Yeah, well, I for one, the Seymour Police Department officer statistics, I like it. It's very concise. The only thing that's missing on it, which would help us determine, because it tells you, number one, I would like to know, it says primary unit number 8. What is that, the vehicle number?
No, that's whichever officer is dispatched to a call, they're gonna be the primary. And then there's a second slot. If there's a backup officer, it'll say the backup unit. So for example, as far as me, I believe I'm in here because I did punch a ticket for something and I had to do a report and I'd be the primary on it because I'm the only officer that's involved. But if there's whichever officer gets, clicked in first or put in first is the primary, and then the second, third, and so on would be the backup.
Yes, Chief?
Yes, so just to clarify that, I think what you're looking at is when it says primary unit 8, they were the primary unit 8 times, that officer. So if you see one that says 55 or 19, that's how many times they were the primary officer compared to the backup officers. So
Okay.
you'll see there, I believe the one I'm looking at, and I think you're looking at the same one, it shows their name, their badge number, and then it gives all their data, what they did for the month when they run that report. So that primary unit is the amount of times they were the primary unit compared to backup unit.
Okay.
So they
Thank you, Chief.
they handle the call.
Okay. John?
Yeah, Commissioner Duke, the only critique I would have, Chief, is there any way we could get the amount of days that the units were actually on the road put on here so we know, what time span we're looking at?
I'll have to talk to Detective Matasovich and see if we can do it. I believe we possibly can do it, but again, I'll have to check with him.
Okay, thank you.
And I could get back to you on the next meeting. But the only other thing on this officer statistics, and again, the chief's correct. I was like trying to explain that, the primary times is when they're dispatched, et cetera, et cetera. The only thing is that on this form here, the officer statistics, it does not show infractions or warnings. I'm sorry, verbals or written warnings. And I believe it'll show it to you on one of the other forms that Detective Matasovich gave you. And I don't have it here in front of me right now. I could get that better next meeting.
I could probably clear it up if you want me to jump in there, Bob.
All right, go ahead, Joe. Yeah. If you want.
So the reports that you have in front of you, there's a difference of citations, arrests, supplemental reports, primary reports, and so forth. So if you see a citation listed there, that means an actual enforcement took place in written form. Warnings will show up. There's a racial bias report that's in there. That'll break down for the month how many warnings were given out by the department, verbal and written. So you can compare some numbers if you want to get drilled down to a specific officer and so forth. What's that?
Where does that show that?
There's another report in there for racial.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I got it.
And that'll tell you the duration of the stop and so forth. There's a lot of information there you could look at. And if you needed to drill down per officer, we could have that available also.
Okay.
Yeah, that one just shows, for example, for the result of the stop, it shows 90, total 104 verbal warnings, but it doesn't break it down in officers, but like Detective Matasovich said, could probably do that.
And as far as assignment for the actual times on the road, I'm not exactly sure we were able to even collect that in the old system, but I'll see if it's available. I do know, just to let you know, there's going to be some scheduling software that we're going to be deploying over the next few months also And we might be able to get you some trend reports and so forth of when officers are working and when they aren't working. So.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chairman or Commissioner, if that's an issue, we'd have to go back to the old way, and the commanders will have to break it down. And then, go back the old way on that part there.
Yeah, just to let you know too, it
Here's the-
literally is point and click now. These are reports that literally took me maybe anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes to generate. So.
Detective, if I could just ask you quick, how does everybody seem to be doing with the new system? Has there been any hangups or training issues that you've had?
Nothing's I would have expected. It's just a new way of workflow processes. It's a new concept in the sense that the more information you pack in a case, the more information is available to us in the long run. It's a new workflow as far as booking a prisoner now, processing evidence. And as you do more and more of it, you understand the new workflow. The other system we developed over the years, these little workarounds to make it happen. And, it's just, it's different now. It's more efficient, less time on things in the long run. Some of the back office work has become more efficient. So yeah, your supervisors have more time available to do stuff on the road and so forth. And overall, I think everybody's adapting well to it. So, for a new process, I mean, literally ripping out one and putting in another. So.
Excellent work, by the way. I know you put a lot of time into this.
Thanks.
Yes, Chief.
I can comment, Chief Psychowski speaking. So we had a staff meeting with the commanders back at, I think it was September 22nd or so. And that came up. So we spent an hour and a half discussing the new system, next gen, their concerns, and how to iron out some of those wrinkles and kinks that we are facing. So the supervisors did bring some concerns. They brought a list to us. We had several discussions, and we're trying to work with the vendor on some of those. Some of it is obviously it's a new system, probably operator error and getting acclimated to the system. But I think we're making progress, and we'll continue to work out some of those concerns or kinks or problems that we're experiencing. So it's a work in progress. It will be for quite, any new system, it takes several months to get acclimated. So we'll continue to work on that.
Any board members have any other comments on these? Okay, just the final one is basically if we could just.
Mr. Chairman, I think Mr. Bitso is waving at you.
Yes, Dave.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to say to Joe that Joe did an excellent job with the implementation of this. And at some point, I'd like to, if you don't mind, I'd like to come in and have you just kind of go through it and help me get a better understanding how to read these reports. I got the gist of it tonight, but I'd like to, understand it a little bit better, if that's okay.
Providing the chief has no problem, yeah, absolutely, whatever you need. There's going to be more implementation going forward with other components that are coming up in the next couple months. But yeah, for absolutely whatever anybody needs, feel free, with the administration's permission, reach out to me.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The only other issue that we're looking for is possibly looking at each officer's, how many days they were on the road for the month. So we know exactly if they work 20 days and they're on the road 15 of those 20 days. So we'll just know the activity they're handling. That's my own.
Just to let you know that the mobile portion's being installed this month. So as the computers get put in there, there's another component that assigns them a car, and those reports, because they do vehicle inspections on the tablet, it tracks when they're in the car and when they're assigned to a beat and so forth. So I'll pose that question to the next gen personnel, but I'm pretty sure that data is going to be collected. So
Thank you. I have one other question on the incident statistic report. Just going through that, it says assistance 76. What does that mean? 76 what? We had to assist other departments or other officers had to assist, or explain that to me.
That can mean one of many things. Some of it, if we serve what's called a prawn, a warrantless arrest warrant for another police department, which we can do now. We have to document it that it's an assistance or it's not our credit for an arrest. If we serve one of our own prawns, we usually use a 90Z, and that basically means we arrested somebody who failed to appear or did a violation of probation on one of our warrants. The other ones are basically, and we've had a lot of them lately, especially on midnights with a lot of stops they've been making. It's been for other departments that we've been serving their failure to appear warrants or violation of probation warrants. And it could also be assisting the public just in general without doing a report.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Board
welcome.
members have any other questions concerning those issues? Joe, I want to thank you for doing an outstanding job on these reports. Hopefully when everybody's fully trained, well, I guess they are all trained except for the chief and deputy chief. I think you should update yourself and go through these classes so that you know exactly what's happening also.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is a detective report. Board members have any questions or comments on detective report?
I mean, they have been following up on a few cases. We've had some more, a couple other businesses broken into. We're investigating a robbery that occurred yesterday morning. They're busy on that also. Plus, a lot of the cars that have, again, we're still having that rash of issues of where cars are getting broken into. We did have one car broken into on Monday, stolen. Went up to Waterbury, was involved in a shooting. Person got the car back yesterday morning, and there was some evidence in there that Waterbury didn't catch, so we're working on that too. But basically for the last month, for the prior month, again, they've been kept
Thank you, Abe.
busy.
Any commissioners have any comments on the detective report? Okay, hearing no questions, we'll move on to the canine report. I got to correct myself. I have both copies in with the agenda of both canines. Is there any comments on the canine reports? John, would you like to say anything on the canine reports?
Just one thing, Officer Gallo just completed a class for decoying school. So he does a 4-day class. He just completed that on, he went Thursday to Sunday. So it's a very good class. I went up on Saturday, worked my dog, but a lot of good information came out of that. So that's all I had.
I have one question. It was brought up at our last meeting. I think Commissioner Bennett brought it up. If something happens to one of our canine vehicles, like it did this month where one was in an accident, do we have a backup canine vehicle? And what was used if so? Chief or deputy chief?
Yeah, so I think I explained this last month, but I'll explain it again. So when a canine vehicle goes out of service, we try to make those accommodations. And what we do is we take one of the other vehicles and they usually put a crate in there, and then they put the canine in a crate. And then we try to make those accommodations the best we can. I don't think it's really been an issue. We encourage that, if and when the car goes in for service, it's usually on their day off, and they understand that and realize that, or if they're going to be away for a couple of days. So, we try to work around certain things like that. But when the vehicle happened the last week, obviously our vendor was able to, he had some of the parts in stock, and he was able to get that back on the road within probably 2 hours or so. So the vehicle wasn't really out of service that long. And, but yes, we do try to make those accommodations each and every time we can.
Thank you. Any board members have any comments on the canine reports? The only thing, I just going back on patrol reports a little bit. Just on patrol reports, I know it was said, I just want to make sure it's followed through. On the third shift, if they could start monitoring more businesses. I think one of the commissioners brought it up before, instead of just sitting still. Deputy Chief explained that because a few of the businesses and cars are being broken into. If they could do that a little bit more on the third shift.
Mr. Chairman, just to answer that, I believe they are told to do that, and they do that. But again, on occasion, could get biased due to the fact they're tied up. That area car could be tied up with something. I don't know. We'll look into it more if there's, any issues. But I believe they check their businesses at the beginning and at the end of the shift.
Did I freeze up?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, you froze up.
More than a little. Uh-oh, he's
I
gone.
think we lost him.
That looked like a good mugshot.
He's back.
Okay.
There he is. There he is.
Okay, I think I'm back. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
SRO and CPO reports. Any comments on it, on them? No comments, okay. Car report, status of cars. This was asked for at our last meeting, and it's in your packet of each of the vehicles we have, the mileage, the make of the vehicle, and what it's assigned for. Are there any questions from any of the commissioners on this report? Yes, Kyle.
Where do we stand as far as purchased and ordered vehicles for this year?
Chief Sakowski speaking. So let me give you the update. One car will be going, one of the new cars is being finished by the vendor as we speak, and we hope to have that online within the next day or two. And then the last one's going up to that person, to the vendor, to get that one done, hopefully sooner than later. And then you asked to get additional quotes as a board. You asked to get additional quotes. We got those additional quotes. And the next vehicle will probably go to one of those other vendors based on the quotes we received. The quote we received is approximately $275 less than where we currently are. But and I think that's due in large part to a promo that's going on, a promotion on a lot of the equipment. But hey, we're going to take advantage of that, and that vehicle is probably going to go out hopefully next week to that vendor. We just got to make sure we're comparing apples to apples, oranges to oranges, and make sure all the equipment is there. The light bar will be different. It's a different probably vendor. I mean, we have some of those light bars, but we were switching over to a different light bar. But so we just got to compare that, and so hopefully next time we meet, both of those cars will be in service. As far as ordering any new cars, the last vehicle was ordered way back, I think it's September or August. That was the Expedition, and we're just waiting for that to come from obviously the manufacturer, and if and when that comes, they said that time frame would be late November, early December, so that's what we're waiting for. Other than that, there are no other vehicles being ordered at this time.
Those two of the cars, the one that's getting finished now by the current vendor was the order from last year, correct?
Yes, those are the ones that we waited almost 10 to 11 months for. And
Right. And then the other two.
Outfitting now has been the problem with the COVID.
Right.
you know.
And then the other two, were the two that were purchased just after the new budget cycle from last year's budget also, correct?
Yes. So we expected to have to order both of those, but the dealer, I guess, pre-ordered. So the vehicle came in a lot quicker than we thought. So that's how we got one of those new vehicles earlier than anticipated. And then obviously the Expedition had to be special ordered.
All right. I think it's good that all those 4 cars are getting done this year. I'd like to, like I had said a few months back, you know, moving forward now that you got 4 new cars in and coming in, now I believe is the time to start planning for and looking into the replacement of the Expedition that was questioned several months ago. Obviously, it's going to take some time and there'll be mileage, yada, 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 but it's not going to come in tomorrow. So I think now would be a good time to start the planning process and looking at replacing that vehicle. I know the chairman's brought up a couple times as far as having the spare, you know, maybe that is something that's thought about down the road too. But I think having those 4 new cars purchased out of last year's budget, you know, now is the time to start looking at the replacement of another canine car and or another patrol car. So however the chairman wants to handle that, or however that's going to go forward. But that'd be my recommendation.
Yes, Dave.
Commissioner Bitzel, 2 things. One is the new Expedition that's due in late November. I'd like to see some consideration be given to making that into a new canine vehicle. We talked about it last couple of meetings, maybe 2 or 3 meetings ago. And from the way it sounds, we're kind of up to snuff and we're in good shape with vehicles coming in. So I'd like to, over the next 30 days between now and next month's meeting, have you maybe, you know, ponder that a little bit. We could talk about it next month. Next month will be into November. So, what was the second thing? Oh boy, should have wrote it down. Oh well, if I think of it, I'll come back to it.
Any other comments?
Oh, I know what it was, Mr.
Go ahead.
Chair. The car that the former deputy chief was driving is still not getting much use. I know it's getting some use, but it's not getting a lot of use. I'd like to strongly recommend that car be put into the DB carpool. Right now, there's 3 cars and technically 6, I guess, detectives. I don't know how 6 people could share 3 cars. So that car is just sitting there. It's not getting a lot of use. And I'd like to see us consider putting that car into the DB pool of cars. That's my recommendation, just for suggestions or comments.
Any other comments about the DB car?
Chief Sanakazi, if I may.
Yes.
So currently there are 4 cars, 4 cars, and then another access car to the DB. So that's really 5 cars that they have access to on a daily basis. You know, the car is used as a spare if and when we need it. If one of our cars go down or anybody's car, you know, it is available to use. I don't know, we need to put it in service right now, but it is there if they need it. I think we used it a handful of times here and there, but and at the same time, they all shouldn't be out of the building at the same time anyways, unless there is something major going on. Lunches should be staggered, cases should be staggered. I mean, so, you know, the other things are taken into consideration as to their workload and their cases and the building itself. But.
Yes, John.
Commissioner Bitzel, are you looking for a motion to put that vehicle into the rotation, or?
Well, I wanted to put it out there for discussion. I'm not sure, you know, how everybody else feels. I know we talked about it last month or 2 months ago, and I've been thinking about it since. And every time I go into Stop and Shop, I drive by, I just see the car sitting there, and I just figured if it could be used, let's put it to use. So I'm not sure if everybody agrees or disagrees, but
Chief Sakowski, if I may. You know,
Yes, Chief.
so as you know, we have a deputy chief slot open, admin. I asked several times for that to be filled, and I'm hoping the board would take that into serious consideration to backfill that position. So we have the proper help up here where we need it. And, you know, because operating at 50% to 60% is kind of tough. And when you're down and expect, you know, to stay at 100% with only operating at 50 to 60% of your workload, that's kind of challenging. So I would hope the board would take that into consideration still. And then obviously if they backfill that position, that would be for the admin position. So.
Yes, Dave.
Isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the new,
I can.
I'm sorry. Isn't the new next gen system in this new software making it easier as far as reports and so forth, making administration more productive? That's kind of what I've been hearing, that this new software is making everybody more productive. So yes, we have talked about what you're asking, but right now, I guess I'm not sure where we're going with that. So I don't want to not address your question.
You know, the next gen software system doesn't replace a body with other things that need to be done on a daily basis at the administration level. And so, yeah, it might increase efficiency as far as gathering data and reports and some of that maybe for first level supervisors, but at our level, we have not seen that yet, where you could just eliminate a body just because you implemented a new software system. So I hope that answers. I would have to disagree that that new software system is not replacing that body that needs to be done at this level to keep a police department running.
Any other comments?
Inspector, if I may.
Yes. Just state your name.
Joe DeNigris, Inspector.
Yes.
Sir, I just, as far as the Detective Bureau it is a little difficult. I know that we do have 3 vehicles and then the minivan. But it is a little difficult at times because of the whole COVID situation. Detectives are only allowed to ride 1 detective per vehicle. So I just want to put that out there that it does get a little complicated at times.
So, Commissioner Bitzel, so I'm hearing 3 cars from the inspector, but the chief said there's 5. I'm confused. Where did we lose 2 cars?
I apologize. We do have 3 detective vehicles and then we use the minivan as well. So yes, there's 4 vehicles for the Detective Bureau with 7 individuals.
And then there's another, Chief Sadkowski speaking, and then there's another one available to them if they needed it. And I believe they have used it in the past. So that would make the 5, just to explain to the commissioner.
Correct. But with COVID, when something happens, we were instructed that only 1 detective could be utilized per vehicle.
So Chief, excuse me, Commissioner Bitzel. So Chief, you're looking to have that car for another administrator if and when that happens. Is that correct?
Chief Sadkowski, yes. That was assigned to the admin. Again, we use it when we have to use it. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I just feel that, I'd like to see that position filled sooner than later, and then that would be assigned to that individual if we were able to do that. And then, the vehicles for the Detective Bureau are the vehicles for the Detective Bureau. So, but, if they need it, They have never came to us and said, hey, we need a car. We used it today. We had a big thing going on and, we used it today. So we do use it on occasion. And if a vehicle breaks down, mine or the deputy chief's, we use it on occasion. But if they need it, by all means, they could use it. But, most of the time, I have not seen that as a problem. That's all I'm saying.
Commissioner
drove
Bitzel
the
again. Would it be a problem to temporarily assign that car to patrol until we get through this COVID thing?
By all means, if they need it, if they come to the deputy chief or myself, they have not done that. So,
Commissioner,
Yes, Kyle?
we will use it if we need to use it. Absolutely. That's, absolutely. It's a department car. We could use it if we need to.
This is Commissioner Kelly. I was just simply going to say, is it easy enough to say if there's a need for the spare car that the request goes to the inspector and it's either granted or not granted?
That sounds like a solution to resolve.
We will make it.
Chair, Mr. Chair, you froze up again.
all right, I'll wait until the chair comes back and I would like to say something.
Back.
Still froze up.
Bob, we should see you.
I'm ready to have in-person meetings again.
Okay, I think I'm back.
There you are.
Okay, all right.
So-
Yes, Dave.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we temporarily assign that vehicle to the Detective Bureau to get through COVID-19 and other issues, and then reevaluate it when the personnel changes.
Mr. Commissioner, could I just say something, please?
Sure, Deputy Chief.
Sure. Okay, I just want to make everybody aware. I mean, we do have, the number of detectives we have. Just remember, we have one on a Saturday here, and he works 12 to 8 the rest of the week. So it's only a 4-hour window when they're all working. Basically, my memo out was that they're not to be in the same car if they're within town. If they're going outside of town, they have to wear masks. So there've been a few times they do take one car and two in a car. Again, that's been working well so far. But if you guys want to make a motion on that, and like the chief said, if they want to use it when they need it, they just come and ask me to give them the car.
Yes, John.
Just two quick things, Mr. Chairman. One is just a point of order. Dave made a motion. We have a motion on the floor. And two, was that vehicle not assigned to the Detective Bureau, to the inspector, before it was given to the chief or deputy chief?
Yes, at the time, that is correct, based on our rank structure at the time, yes.
Okay. All right. And Dave has a motion on the floor, which I think we need to get a second on, just as a point of order.
I second.
I believe we have to place that on the agenda because it's not on the agenda. Adding that detective, that are vehicle to detective division. So if you want to make a motion to add this to the agenda, please do. Motion by Kyle. Second by Dave. Discussion. All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand. Okay, 5-0. Okay, now you could make a motion if you want to.
I'd like to make a motion that we temporarily assign that vehicle to the DB until it can be reevaluated down the road when personnel changes. I don't think they should have, I don't, no, go ahead. I'm good. I'm good.
Motion by Dave, second by Kyle. Discussion. Just
I'll just
raise
add
your
one more.
hand.
I'll add,
Yes.
Commissioner Bitts, I'd like to add one more thing. I don't think that they should have to ask to be able to use the car if they need to use it. If they need to use it, they need to use it.
Is that part of your motion?
There's a reason why they're asking. And if someone's not available to ask, that could hamper something. So I just wanted to add that in there.
Is that part of the motion?
No, that was my comment. That was my discussion.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor, raise your hand.
I think Commissioner Bennett has something, but he's on.
Oh, okay. Okay, we'll hold off.
Can you
Commissioner
guys hear
Bennett?
me?
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett, how does it work in a DB? Do they have to sign cars out? I mean, not sign them out, but do they have to go and get permission to get a car, or do they just take the car that they need? Now, how does that work?
They,
Chief Sekowski, if I may. So
Inspector.
certain vehicles are assigned to the divisions. They are assigned 4 cars, and then they have access to another one. And then they have those keys available to them. And then if they need a car, they just figure out what car they want to take, and they just take the car. So that's what happens. So they have 4 cars assigned plus access to another one. But they just randomly pick what car they want to take, and that's what they do.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments? Okay, we're voting on the motion now. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? So carry 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay, number 8, new business. Any board members have any new business to bring up? Okay, I don't see anything. Okay, going on to correspondence. We did receive correspondence from the chief sending a letter to the Public Works Director talking about the word stop by the stop signs, by the stop bar, and also bigger stop signs. I believe we haven't heard anything back yet. Have we, Chief?
That's correct. I have not.
Could you please just follow up with another letter to him?
I'll touch base with the director. Number 1, make sure he got the letter, and then number 2, see what their time frame. As far as the painting, I don't know if they'll do any of that till next spring because of the weather and going into the winter months and the plow season. And the stop signs, I'll discuss that with him, and that could be a budgetary issue. Number 1, if they don't have them, and number 2, they have to order them, and the money's for those. So I'll have a discussion with him, and then I'll see what the status is.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any other correspondence? I didn't have any other in my packet. Moving on, other business. Any commissioners have any other business to bring up? Yes, Kyle.
Just one thing that a couple of people had brought up. I know a while back it had been worked on quite hard by a number of officers, but the block the box, don't block the box areas throughout town. There's I know there's one big area near Stop and Shop and in front of the PD. I don't know if that's a possibility to have Public Works or DOT, whoever has to get out there to do that, to repaint those and maybe even enforce it at times if appropriate. Just a thought.
Chief, Chief, can you please follow up on that with the Public Works? I believe Public Works is the one who painted it last time.
Chief Sarkowski, yes, I'll follow up with them or the DOT to see what we can do there.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Dave.
I have two quick things. One, I meant to bring this up with public or my commissioner's reports earlier, but I was contacted or approached, I should say, by a resident. I guess Rimmon Road was recently paved, and from what I'm hearing, that it's like a speedway going down that hill. So they did ask if we would consider putting a stop sign on Ribbon Road at the intersection of where Pershing Drive meets it. So I'd like to ask the chief to look into that. And then the second thing was, I guess I'm just looking for clarification. I was in a store actually this afternoon in the Oxmoor Plaza, and I saw, and this wasn't a police officer, I saw a person carrying an open firearm, almost like Western style. So has the laws changed in Connecticut where you can carry an open firearm that's visible?
Hey, Deputy Chief Rinaldi here.
Yep.
That was never a law, even though it does say concealed carry. But if you read the statute itself, it doesn't say anything about it has to be concealed.
Okay.
That's been a big issue for years. People have, called. If you read the statute itself, basically it says nothing about it has to be concealed.
But yet it's a concealed permit.
Even though they say it says concealed, permit, but when you read the statute, it says nothing they don't have to. Now, if someone is on private property and someone asks that person to leave because they have an exposed weapon, they have to leave, or they could be arrested for trespassing. You can't get arrested for breach of peace or carrying a firearm exposed. So again, if you read the statute and what the title is, it's two different things.
No, like I said, thank you. I was very surprised when I saw that. So I think there's an opportunity now to get a clarification. Thank you.
Yeah, usually we could go over and ask, and they'll show you the carry. They have the permit. But they can carry exposed.
Stop sign is warned.
Mr. Chairman, you're muted. You muted yourself.
Oh, okay, yeah, it looked like it was frozen, so that's why I muted myself, because I was going to say a bad word. Okay. Oh, excuse me, Chief, can you just please check to see if a stop sign is warranted on Rimmon Road where Commissioner Bitzel was talking about?
That'll be reviewed again. Yes, Rimmon at Pershing.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners' comments. Any commissioners have any comments? Just raise your hand so I could see. Okay, I don't see any further commissioners' comments. Moving on, union business. Is there any union business?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. I have no written public comment, so we'll move on. Next item on the agenda is executive session personnel chief's contract. We need a motion to go in executive session with all the board members, Attorney Brian Leclerc, and also the acting first select person, because that's the next official of the board. Dave,
Mr. Chairman,
make the
Mr. Chairman, you need to inquire also of the chief, because before you can go into executive session.
Yes, you're right. Chief, do you want an executive session or open session?
We'll go to executive.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion going to executive session at 8 o'clock. Motion by Dave. Do I have a second? Second by John. Discussion. All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand. Opposed, abstention, so carried. So it'll be the 5 board members, the attorney, and also and read bonus.
Is the chief included in that?
Oh, yes, the chief. Yes, I'm sorry. That's what we're discussing.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Recording's back on for the moment. Nobody get comfy. We're going back. Caroline's running. Don't run, Caroline.
We all set, Kyle? Okay, could I have a motion to come out of executive session? No action, no motions that were taken at that time at 8:07. Motion by John. Second by Tom. Discussion. All in favor, raise your hand. 5-0. Okay, could I have a motion go back into executive session at 8:08? Including all the previous members except for the chief of police. Motion by Kyle, second by Tom. Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, abstention, so carry. 5-0.
Recording is back on.
All set? Okay, could I have a motion come out of exec session at 8:25? No action or motions were taken. Motion by Dave, second by John. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, abstention, so carry. 5-0. Okay, could I have a motion go back into executive session 8:26 with the board members, the chief, and Anne Marie Dugonis.
And Attorney Leclerc.
And Attorney Leclerc. Motion by Tom, second by Dave. All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand. Opposed, abstention, so carried. So we'll go back in executive session.
The recording is.
All set, Kyle?
Yes, sir.
We're all set? Okay, no motions or actions are taken in exec session, so okay, motion come out of exec session at 8:35. Motion by Kyle, second by Dave. Discussion. All in favor, say aye, or raise your hand. Opposed, abstention, so carry. 5-0. At this time, next on the agenda is take possible action if necessary on contract. And do I have a motion by anyone to extend or to renew the chief's contract that ends on June 30th, 2021? Is there a motion by any member? If I don't have a motion to extend the chief's contract, then the motion will be lost. There's no motion, no second. Okay, is there any other comments concerning this issue? Okay, no other comments, so I'll now take the motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:36. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:36? Motion by Dave. second by John. Discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed, abstention, so carried 5-0. Okay, thank you. Everybody have a good night.